On today's show, we remember local fallen hero Army Sergeant Benjamin W. Sherman, learn about the mission of the new nonprofit Ashes to Honor, and hear original poetry.
We'll also go on the local scene to Hedge House Museum to learn about historic textiles and clothing and talk about upcoming things to do in our area.
We're glad you're here. Let's get started. We were privileged to work with staff at Plymouth Memorial Hall and the families of our fallen soldiers to shine a light on the lives of the local heroes who wore the uniforms now displayed in the Hall of Flags. With their permission, we share the story of Army Sergeant Benjamin W. Sherman, told by his widow Patricia and daughter Skyla.
Before he joined, he, was confused and lost and just didn't make the right decisions. But as soon as he joined, he had a purpose. He had a moment where he was like, I'm meant to do this. This is my destiny. This is what I was born to do. There was structure. There was, a task for him to do at all times. So I think that definitely changed who he was for the better. He left a mark on everybody, not just people he didn't know, but people he knew, people he loved, people he would walk by and say hi to. But I feel like his greatest legacy is his daughter. Because she's growing up now, we get to explain his story. So she helps keep it alive at the schools. Because of Memorial Day, she gets to talk at the schools about him and his bravery, things like that. I used to do college speakings and high school speakings. I'd go and talk about, it can happen to you and it can happen at any age. So definitely always spreading his story.
He was definitely one of the bravest, funniest people I think I would have ever met if I did meet him. He had his ups and downs, of course, but he was a great man. A lot of people love him. His memory lives throughout so many people. My school carries his memory, his teachers, they always talk to me about him. I love every little story. Definitely was one of the greatest people ever.
We honor those we've lost and will continue to say their names and remember them. You can visit the Hall of Flags at Plymouth Memorial Hall, located at 83 Court Street.
Ashes to Honor is a nonprofit whose mission is to recover and recreate lost and damaged records of military veterans. Here's the story.
The moment that I realized that my grandfather's records were actually lost in the fire, it kind of opened up multiple doors for us. So not only did we realize that there was 18 million records affected, but not only that, my grandfather was affected. So seeing where the records had been kept, the lack of fire suppression, the year that it happened, so many different factors playing in, it really drove me to be like, okay, why did it happen? How many people have been affected? There's really no estimated number. With 18 million records, there could be countless veterans that have been affected, and it's from about World War I to Korea and Vietnam. Guys that were coming home right off the battlefield a couple years later, lost. They didn't have anything. So getting VA care, getting the proper burial respects, getting proper care, that just wasn't feasible for many, many men. I just got out of the military on September 30th, so I was in for 11 years and 11 months. Throughout my time in the military, I understand how the paperwork works. I understand how hurry up and wait is, and a lot of people, when they're told no, if they try to request the records, they'll just give up. They're like, oh, nope, the records are lost. We don't give up, right? So we're not regulated by any state or federal entity. So I can go to the FBI, I can put in FOIAs through the DOD, I can go to Human Resources Command of the Army, I can go through so many different chains that your local veteran agent can't. The fire at the National Personal Record Center happened on June 13th to the 16th in 1973. The fire burned for about 3 days. It started on the 6th floor of the building and went all the way down. A lot of the damage is not actually fire damage, it's smoke and it's a lot of water damage. Even with partial records, they're able to still pull certain pieces out and be like, okay, yep, this gentleman, John Smith, served from, so-and-so. It takes a lot of work to actually recover certain things, but it's not impossible. And for the longest time, everybody thought that it was impossible, but it's not. They're using the same technology that they're using to read the hieroglyphics in Egypt to read the papers that have been burned, that are so destroyed that they're actually using that same kind of technology to figure out what is on these papers that are smoke and water damaged. The biggest challenge for recovering my grandfather's records, I would have to say, is the fact that he was in the Army Reserve. The reserves have always been like the redheaded stepchild of any of the branches. Their records have been kept in many different places. It's kind of a crapshoot when you're trying to figure out where certain things are. The MRO is the Military Records Office, and they hold on to absolutely everything except for the reserve component. So if you're National Guard or active duty, you can call them up, you can send them a request letter, and basically get anything there. There's so many different components to the government, right? At the federal level, you're really playing with some big dogs. You have to learn the lingo, you have to see, who is where, who does what, and I've been figuring that out slowly. So the broader picture, after realizing that my grandfather's records were actually lost, was how many other people has this happened to? How many men are buried that didn't get the proper respects? There's got to be Bronze Star recipients, there's got to be Purple Heart recipients, there's got to be people that did some valorous actions, courageous movements in the time of war that didn't get anything at their time of death. The biggest thing for me is like, okay, if we can do it for him, we can do it for anyone. So now I want to find as many veterans that have been buried without the proper respects and take care of that. And the Army will come out with like the honor guard, and they'll fold a flag. It doesn't matter if the veteran just passed away or if they've been dead for 40, 50, 60 years. That's something that they are entitled to. They earned that when they either got drafted or when they signed up. That's the biggest heartbreak for me, is that there's men that were telling everyone for the longest time, oh, I served in World War II, I served in Korea, Vietnam, whatever, and they got nothing at the end of the day. That's honestly like the biggest key point for me is, getting that fixed. Say if a veteran comes to us and they're like, hey, I think I've been affected by the fire. We recently had like a release form drafted up, so we've been giving that to the veteran. If nothing comes back, right, that's where it gets really challenging. If John Smith served and he's the last one out of all of his battle buddies alive, right, that's going to be the biggest issue. If there is living, company mates or anything else, we could use what's called like a buddy letter. It's basically an affidavit saying like, yes, I served next to so-and-so on this date, he was there. We can send that to them. If not, we can recover photos, if there's any other records, if pictures, videos, absolutely anything. Even letters like to and from home, that stuff really does matter. All of the proof, that's where it really comes into play. I can send that off to the government and say, hey, like I have tons of proof here. You cannot deny that this person served. And they're like, okay, we'll look into it. It'll take a couple weeks, a couple months, but still, it doesn't matter how long it takes as long as we can actually get it done. June 30th, we had done our first posthumous honors. There was a gentleman from the town of Dennis, and he had served in World War II along with 6 of his brothers. And sadly, he lost his records in the fire. So he had passed away in 1994, but his entire life he didn't want any sort of recognition, respects. He didn't want to be the veteran that went off to war. Right? That's the biggest issue with the greatest generation that ever lived, is they didn't want the recognition. They did their job. They came home and they worked until they passed away. It took us 45 minutes to find his records at the Massachusetts Archives when the government's had 51 years to do it. State Rep Steve Exaros was present there. There was other local veterans entities there. I had the flag. Plymouth Police gave us a full escort down to the graveyard in Dennis, and every town from Plymouth to Dennis actually hopped in. So it was a really special moment, and sadly there's not a lot of family left, but his grandson, probably in his 30s or 40s, actually was the one to receive the flag. Seeing the effect that it had on not only him, but everybody else there was really, it honestly touched me, right? I'm not a very emotional person, but that I had to step back and I was like, dang, like that really, this is a really special thing, It's fixing what has been lost for so long, and if you've been looking for it or wondering about like what your loved one did, this is perfect. That's just one instance, but there's many more. And being a 2-person team, this is not going to happen overnight. It's already been 51 years. I don't want it to take 102 years to try to fix everything. I hope that people realize the importance of honoring those who made the sacrifice, those who served in the greatest battles in history. I would like the next generations to be able to read the stories of these great men and women that served and didn't get the chance to be honored. So not only when we posthumously honor or find records, like we're not just helping someone, right? we're figuring out the person's story. We're telling what they did in the most challenging time in their lives. I would just like to have everybody just read up on what we're doing, ask us questions, send us an email, just help us. If you know someone, or even family members, if you know someone that has been affected, please reach out. Help us help everybody else. I would say the reflection of my service to what we're doing to Ashes to Honor would really be that I don't give up. You can't tell me no. There's not a single entity that is going to tell me no. There's a mission that has to be completed, and I'm going to complete it. If it takes me the rest of my life, I'm gonna try to do as many, posthumous honors, saving, veterans with health care, helping as many veterans as possible, families too. My time in the service was a long time. This is helping me mature in my adult life, because I've learned so much about so many amazing people, like from the start of doing this till now. Like the military shaped me into who I am today, and I'm not gonna give up.
Who is the bird with beautifully unusual behavior, an intriguing physical appearance, and fascinating nocturnal lifestyle? Even the most casual bird watcher is awed by the mystery and magnificence of the owl, who can be found on all but one continent and has inspired myths, legends, and art across cultures since ancient times. Want to know more? On Thursday, January 23rd, join Mass Audubon at the Manomet branch of the Plymouth Public Library for Owls of Massachusetts. This informative program will teach the anatomy and behavior of snowy owls and other common owl species found in Massachusetts, and the significance they all have to local habitats. Adults and families aged 6 and up will enjoy learning more about why humans have given such a hoot about these captivating birds for thousands of years. There will be no live captive owls as part of this program. This free program is made possible by generous support from the America the Beautiful initiative in partnership with the Plymouth Public Library.
Not only is story time at the library a fun, interactive activity, but it also encourages language development, hones social skills, and inspires creativity in children. On Monday, January 27th, the Pembroke Public Library is hosting a special guest from the Boston Children's Hospital for an engaging, interactive story time, highlighting the valuable lessons about avoiding injury and staying safe. Toddlers ages 2 to 5 and their caretakers are invited to attend. Storytime with Boston Children's Hospital starts at 10:30 a.m. in the meeting room of the library. The event will run about 45 minutes and is free. Visit the library website to register.
The Plymouth Antiquarian Society maintains a large and historically relevant volume of clothing and textiles. We went on the local scene to Hedge House Museum to learn more.
All manner of collections here at the Antiquarian Society, but for this project, what we're really looking at is the historic clothing and textiles collection. Which is something that Plymouth Antiquarian placed a priority on collecting such items, historic clothing in particular, from the very beginning, back in the 1920s. This historic clothing collection is very large, and it has been growing over decades and decades. So that's what we're placing the priority on for this assessment.
We're of course, having to create a new strategic plan and of course, decide what direction we were going in. So that took us a full year to complete. Now, what even brought that closer to the surface is that we also got a bequest from one of our members, Ellen Parkes, for $147,000. So that allowed us to really start the ball rolling and thinking about, okay, now we can hire some textile conservators, see what they say, and start looking at this collection that I kept hearing about was put away for only 20 to 30 years. But what we have found are items that have been stored away since 1931 and earlier. It is just amazing to me that we're finally going to be able to bring all these to light and be able to have exhibits showing what we do have, deaccession what we don't really need from the collection, but because of the vast amount that we have, we're looking 3 to 5 years.
So the big philosophical movement behind conservation is that you are dealing with objects and you're trying to stabilize them within a museum setting so that we can show them to a public audience, so that people can use them for research, so that you can have them in the setting for a long time. We're trying to learn from objects, but as objects experience time, they have a natural tendency to degrade, and we're here to minimize that degradation over a period of time.
What we look for is our hazards first. So are the items being stored in a way that could be hazardous to somebody's health? So it's not all just about the objects. You could have things boxed up in a way where, say, they're blocking a fire exit, or where they could fall on somebody. In addition to that, you could have pests.
In the late 19th century, there was a lot of experimentation with dress and clothing, and specifically dye colors, because there was this whole new idea of chemistry coming about. People were interested in experimenting with colors. So there's mauve was one of the first chemical dyes that was created, not natural dye, not from like wood or trees or anything like that. And so this whole idea of chemical dyes came about, and people just started adding random things together, not realizing that they were toxic. And so we see a lot of coloration with green being filled with arsenic. We also see things like hats in collections, which are made with mercury and arsenic as well. So you've heard about the Mad Hatter disease in the past. That's because people were wearing hats with mercury in them, and they were literally getting mercury poisoning. So there's dangers like that we have to think about and have to assess in these sorts of collections with objects of danger. In the museum world, we have to be very careful with some of these colors, these bright colors, because they do tend to have a lot of heavy metals that are poisonous to us as conservators. Hence, we wear the personal protective equipment of the gloves. So this one is one that we would have to think about what would we need to do to this in order to make it safe for future people to handle, to display, to research, all of those aspects.
We look at the objects and we say, okay, what's a priority? What needs conservation? What needs immediate care? What could wait a little while? We do have some fracturing. Luckily, it's not nearly as much as I've seen in the past, or as the condition isn't as fragile as it could be, but we have some fracturing here that you can see. And another place where you get a lot of fracturing is in folds. So when you're rehousing an object, and this is why it's important to do this, we can look and examine and see how much conservation an object might need and assess that. And so we could also write suitable for exhibition. So because these objects don't need a lot of conservation, that's good. It won't cost a lot of money to exhibit, and we know they can be exhibited with no or minor conservation. So you can see in the folds here, though, that a lot of the fracturing is happening in the folds. That's because folds put a lot of stress on the silk. And that's why we try to fill dresses or gowns out, especially when they're silk, because after a while, if they're not, the folds can actually fracture and break. You can also get some unevenness in the dye as well, depending on the type of dye, because with the folds, the air is hitting it in different directions. Light can be hitting it in different directions. So if that's the case, you want to make sure that it's all filled out, because then you're having even distribution of airflow. And you also, with folds, you can, if the air is trapped in here and say it gets really warm and muggy, you can get mold in some of those folds if you don't have good climate control. Provenance is really one of the larger factors, and that's why it's important for a museum to have a strategic plan in place, to have had an assessment, a conservation assessment. In addition to that, it helps if they have their mission really figured out, and an idea of what they are going to collect. There's a security risk if you have all these objects and really there isn't necessarily a need for them.
Our mission is basically to collect things with a Plymouth provenance. And so therefore, it has to relate to that. Now, you also have to think of the condition of the item, and at one point, they're just going to say, yeah, just to get rid of it. It doesn't have meaning to us.
We've had decades of people associated with the Society doing great work in preserving this collection, and we need to come up with a plan, a roadmap of how we move forward in terms of making sure that this collection gets the best storage, the best security, the best environmental conditions. We need to think about all these things. And so this assessment is going to help us create that roadmap.
We'll talk about dangers to the objects themselves and improving things like heat, humidity controls, all of the normal controls that we would have with climate-controlled spaces. We would also talk about insect controls and people, managing, making sure that nobody is accessing things when they shouldn't be, making sure we have tracking of movement from objects to between spaces.
A lot of the time you want to assess, is it worth putting the work into this? Like, will the cost outweigh the benefit of keeping this object? And do you want to spend a lot of money in conserving or preserving an object that really has no connection to the mission of this organization?
It's kind of up to us, generations later, to do the research on that, people. So with certain objects, we may have an accession record that ideally has a name attached to it, and then it's for us to do the research on that person. Okay, what was this person's story? Who was this person? What makes these objects such treasures to me is the story that they tell, the history behind them. I am not an expert in terms of the workmanship and the material conditions and that sort of thing, and we have two wonderful experts here who can speak to that. But I can tell you a little bit about the history of these pieces that really excites me. And why don't we start with this gown right here, which belonged to Ellen Wright Garrison, and she was married in 1863, and she married William Lloyd Garrison Jr. Now, his father, William Lloyd Garrison Sr., was the very famous abolitionist in Boston, probably the most famous abolitionist in the country. So this is the daughter-in-law of the famous William Lloyd Garrison. His son, William Lloyd Garrison, wasn't quite so famous, but was an incredible activist in his own right, and Ellen was too. Ellen was a major leader in the women's rights movements in the 19th century. She organized women's rights conventions across the country. She organized in 1898 to mark the 50th anniversary of Seneca Falls Convention, which was the beginning of the women's rights movement. She organized a 50th anniversary convention in Washington, D.C. to observe that and to carry the movement forward. So really a remarkable story, a remarkable individual, and here's her wedding gown.
When we were first born, we're wrapped in a textile. When we die, we're wrapped in a textile. So there's lots and lots of different stories that can be told with textiles, and I think it's just a matter of how you want to interpret it, what you want to focus on in terms of history. You could talk about women's work, you could talk about slavery, you could talk about trade, you could talk about economics, and all sorts of other things. So it just depends on which lens you're putting on for that discussion.
What's important about those objects and why we need to preserve them is because we need to be able to tell the story. And a lot of those objects too are associated with women. And let's face it, that women were left out of the history books for long enough. And so a lot of museums, because of the cost associated with displaying those objects, even though they bring a ton of people through the door, which is what you want, they're not always able to justify the initial cost, and they look at it as, oh, it's so expensive. But what the value is the amount of people you get in the door when you show clothing or when you tell the story through these extant or existing objects. It's much more moving to people, and it tells more of the story if the silhouette is right, how it looked during the time period. There's a hairstyle to go with it, the accessories. All of those things help interpret and relay that story and really bring that awe and wow factor into a museum.
It's just going to blow your mind how much of the collection we have acquired over the years. So what I want to see is that they get properly documented. Having that ability for everybody to see what's in our collection will be amazing.
We really see this as a vital way to engage with the community. There is something about historic clothing that really kind of captures people. And the educational opportunities here and the opportunities for exhibits are great. And so I do hope that this captures attention and that people are, sort of looking to see what happens next year.
Next up is poet Johnny Garska.
Hi, my name is Johnny Garska, and most of the poems I write are for and about my family or things that we've been through. The first I call It's a Good Thing. It's a good thing fathers can't vote for homecoming queen, 'cause every daughter would have a crown, would carry the roses, would wear the white gown. It's a good thing fathers can't vote. It's a good thing mothers can't vote for the captains of teams, 'cause every son would win by a lot, would be a great athlete, could make every shot. It's a good thing mothers can't vote. It's too bad we can't shelter our children from life's disappointment and pain. It's too bad we can't shoulder their burdens or kiss their hurts better again. It's too bad they can't learn life like spelling by rote. And it's too bad we parents can't help them or vote. Thank you. Okay, now I only have 14 more. Yes. Sorry. Oh, here it is. Okay. I'll go with this, and then when you yell at me, I'll stop, okay? Our papa came to live with us. We were empty nesters, and we invited him. And he said, I'll come under 2 conditions. And I'm thinking, Sparky, you're going to come live with me, and you're going to give me conditions? His first was, I'm going to make more work for you, so I want to pay for a cleaning lady every 2 weeks. And I thought, boy, he drives a hard bargain. The second condition was that he was going to pay for a massage for me once a month just because he thinks I would like that. Okay, this is the Papa. Papa's chair. It sits in my pretty great room, Papa's ugly red corduroy chair. And many are the times I sigh when I see it crouching there. My grandkids see it differently, though. They look on its tiredness with pride. For when Papa says the magic word, the chair takes them each for a ride. One day when Jessie was visiting, she felt out of sorts and sad. Her mama said, "Go sit with Papa," and that's just what she did. She clambered up upon his lap, and the chair took the two of them back. Then they both watched Dora the Explorer, and they both took a little nap. I know I'm being a stinker, I whispered to God in prayer. For beneath all of my complaining, I really do care. And I wonder when Papa has gone, how long will his special chair stay? I'm thinking probably half an hour before I throw that sucker away. Okay, and I have one more. Is that okay? I can't find where I put my third one. Ta-da! Too bad, guys. I have found it. This is called Empty Nest. And I wrote it for my husband. Just so you know, I used to talk about us having a mixed marriage because I'm one of 10 and my husband's an only child. But I realized later on that a real mixed marriage is a writer and an accountant. Okay. It's not so bad, this empty nest, just you and me again. We'll have more time, just you and me, to be lovers instead of just friends. Sometimes I didn't listen. The kids' needs got in the way. Sometimes I was too tired to love. You think you had a bad day? But things will be different now. It's not so bad, this empty nest, just you and me again. We'll do things together, just you and me, antiquing and tennis and zen. I'll go to the places you go, sit in on a card game or two. You can come to my Pilates class, have your hair frosted too. Boy, things will be different now. It's driving me nuts, this empty nest, just you and me again. I have no space, you're always here, and I can't stand your friends. We've grown into different people. Our interests aren't always the same. Our minds, horizons, and bodies have changed. This isn't some newlywed game. And things are different now. Now I love you, truly love you, as only maturity can. It's more than your eyes, the sound of your voice, your gentle caressing hand. I love you as a father. I love you as a son. I love you, my husband, my lover. We've worlds of experience yet to explore, so many things to discover. And things are different now. Yes, things are different now. Boy, things are different now. There we go.
The Plymouth Grist Mill is a working reproduction of the Plymouth colonists' 1636 grain mill and an important part of the growing movement to rebuild grain economies in the region by producing locally. On Tuesday, January 21st, the Plymouth Patuxent Museum invites you to witness the mill in action at Virtual Grind with the Plymouth Grist Mill. Attendees will get a behind-the-scenes look at millers in action and learn the history of this reproduction mill, all from the warm, cozy comfort of your home. This unique online event experience is from 12 to 1 p.m. and costs just $10 for members and $20 for non-members. To get tickets for Wheat is sure to be a grain time, turn your wheel toward Eventbrite and search Virtual Grind with the Plymouth Grist Mill. You don't want to mill around too long before purchasing. The first 10 ticket holders get a complimentary bag of cornmeal.
Organized by the Plymouth No Place for Hate Committee, the Martin Luther King Jr. Weekend is a powerful event series intended to bring the community together to honor, reflect on, and be inspired by Martin Luther King Jr.'s legacy of nonviolent protest and fight for justice and equality for all. It begins on Friday, January 17th at 7 o'clock p.m. with the documentary I Am MLK Jr. at the Plymouth Patuxent Museum Cinema. The film is an overview on the life and impact on civil rights Dr. Martin Luther King continues to have to this day. Saturday, January 18th, will be a day dedicated to service with a town-wide food drive. From 9 a.m. to 1 p.m., you can drop your non-perishable food items off at any of the 3 collection sites: the market at Pine Hills, Clements Market, or the Church of the Pilgrimage. All food collected will be distributed to the food banks at Christ Church, American Legion, Salvation Army, Second Church in Manomet, and Plymouth Area Coalition for the Homeless. Sunday, January 19th, events will be held at the Plymouth Church of the Pilgrimage. The day begins with an ecumenical worship service at 10:30 a.m. There will be a light luncheon at 12 p.m. and from 1 p.m. to 3 p.m., enjoy a program featuring Plymouth Middle School Choir, essay contest winners, and featured speaker, president, and CEO of the Urban League of Eastern Massachusetts, Reverend Rasan D. Hall, Esquire. If you would like to attend the luncheon, you must register through the No Place for Hate website. Voluntary donations of non-perishable food items for local food pantries will be collected at the door at all events. I'll be there too with the local Scene Street team, so step up to the mic and say hi.
Alfred Hitchcock's Notorious, the 1946 spy film noir starring Cary Grant, Ingrid Bergman, and Claude Rains, is the Duxbury Free Library's Sunday Arts and Culture Series featured film, continuing the film study series highlighting the work of this seminal director. On January 26th, join retired film studies professor John Riccio in the Merry Room for an informative introduction and screening of the full movie, followed by a stimulating group discussion. The event starts at 2 p.m. and will roll until 5. There are adult themes, so this event is recommended for teens and above. Register via the library's website.
January is National Soup Month, and the Kingston Council on Aging is having a super event to celebrate it. On Friday, January 17th at 11:30 a.m., Chef Warner from Cafe Evergreen will be doing a cooking demonstration of how to make a hearty chicken and barley soup with vegetables, the perfect bowl of warm deliciousness to cozy up any long, cold winter month. The fee of $5 is due upon registration and includes a full portion of soup plus a scrumptious roll to dip and sop up every last savory drop. The recipe will be available for everyone to take home.
Regardless of political perspective, the importance of maintaining a sense of community is something we all need. On Tuesday, January 21st, join author Cheryl Jones at the Plymouth Public Library for Thrive Forward, Fostering Individual and Collective Resilience. Using Cheryl's book, Thriving When Your Cosmic Egg is Cracked, as a guide, this healing and strengthening evening will focus on information and tools to help us expand beyond our thoughts and beliefs and create a forward-thinking narrative that is full of inspiration, enlightened potential, and hope. This event takes place in the Phalo Meeting Room from 6 to 7:15 p.m.
Did you know that Pembroke was the site of the first sawmill in the colony, or that Robert Barker and Duller Davis were the first settlers in the area? If you think you know your Pembroke history or are interested in learning more about the town in bite-sized bits of intriguing information, the Pembroke Historical Society will be slinging trivia at the Pembroke Council on Aging on Tuesday, January 21st. The event starts at 10 a.m. and is open to all knowledge seekers who love the town of Pembroke.
Does a career offering excitement and a chance to serve and engage with your community sound good to you? The Plymouth Police Department invites motivated people under the age of 39 years old who are passionate about community service to submit an application for the Municipal Police Officer Examination. The department offers promising career opportunities and growth potential in a wide range of specialized areas such as SWAT, Detective Division, Critical Incident Team, Canine and Marine units, school resource officers, and motorcycle, ATV, and mountain bike units. Starting salary is over $66,000 per year. All interested candidates have until January 28th to apply, and testing begins March 15th. Visit plymouthpolice.com to learn more.
This is the time of year for pledging commitments to new personal aspirations and goals. If writing and publishing a book is on your New Year's resolution list, the Duxbury Free Library is hosting a virtual event on Tuesday, January 28th to help you get one step closer to fulfilling this dream. An inside look at working with a literary agent, a conversation with Seth Fishman, will be an educational discussion with a publishing insider about the beginning stages of the publishing process and how literary agents work. Mr. Fishman has been with the Gernert Company since 2010 and is currently Vice President and Literary Agent. He will begin the conversation online starting at 1 p.m. The link to register can be found on the library's website.
An ethno-nationalist conflict known as the Troubles tore Northern Ireland apart in violent disagreement about the region's status from the late 1960s until 1998. For historical reasons, the Unionists and Loyalists wanted Northern Ireland to remain within the United Kingdom. Irish nationalists and Republicans wanted Northern Ireland to leave the United Kingdom and become a united Ireland. Learn more about the Troubles on Saturday, January 18th at 2 p.m. when the Ancient Order of Hibernians, Plymouth Division 9, is hosting an intimate talk with author David Tereshchuk to mark publication of David's memoir, A Question of Paternity, My Life as an Unaffiliated Reporter. Moderated by Irish activist and journalist Don Mullen, From Bloody Sunday to Other Global Upheavals is a free event in the inspired historical setting of Cordage Park. Learn about Tereshchuk's intriguing life, career, and the stories behind the memoir during a panel discussion, followed by a moderated Q&A session open to the audience. The event starts at 2 p.m. and is free. Please register to attend through Eventbrite or by emailing the order at aohplymouth@gmail.com. The memoir will be available for purchase. The Ancient Order of Hibernians is located at 36 Cordage Park Circle, Unit 220A, here in Plymouth, Mass.
Tax season feeling a bit taxing? The AARP Tax Aid team will be at the Kingston Council on Aging on Mondays and Tuesdays beginning February 10th through April 15th to help with tax return preparation. Appointments are typically about 2 hours long and can be made starting January 27th by calling the designated tax aid number at 781-689-0406 or by emailing kingsaid@gmail.com. Once you make your appointment, you can pick up a tax packet at the Senior Center that will include instructions, a questionnaire, and other tax forms that should be completed before you meet with your tax person.
And that, my friends, wraps this episode of The Local Scene this week.
We thank our patrons Tiny & Sons, Quintal Brothers, and Squinny's Pizza for supporting our mission of community in action through media.
And we thank you for watching. If you have a story or event you'd like people to know about, email us at story@thelocalscene.media. And if you live or work in Plymouth, Pembroke, Kingston, or Duxbury and would like to have your own show or podcast, you should. Email community@thelocalscene.media to find out about our free production services and training for community members. We'll be back next week with more of what's good and good to know in our community. Until then, we'll see you on The Local Scene. For more of what's good and good to know on the South Shore of Massachusetts, hit the subscribe button. And thank you for watching.